And I want to bring in former Republican Congressman Will Hurd, now of Texas, because he served as an undercover CIA agent in both Afghanistan and Pakistan. Congressman, I appreciate your time. So, you hear the Taliban, they had a press conference today, and the spokesperson promises, quote, no death will be caused to anyone outside of Afghanistan. They say their ideology has not changed, but there will be, quote, positive differences from when they last ruled. Is there any reason for you to believe that this is in any way a, quote, new Taliban?
No, there's no reason to believe that. And Aaron, I hope someone there at CNN goes into the archives. Y'all ran a documentary about a week before 9/11 that was highlighting what the Taliban was doing in that country. And they're in a huge soccer stadium, and people are watching folks kill women for doing a variety of things like going out in public, right? It's crazy. And many of the folks that are coming into this, that are in this Taliban 2.0, as your reporter called it, were there during that previous Taliban administration. We also couldn't trust them when it came to the so-called peace negotiations that were happening in Doha. They didn't follow through on some of their agreements there. So I don't think there's anything that would suggest that we have anything to believe in this new Taliban administration.
So, Congressman, I had showed a picture at the beginning of the hour. I don't know if you've seen it, but I know you've heard about all of this, the weapons situation. The U.S. spent nearly $90 billion, $90 billion, taxpayer money, equipping the Afghan military and police, who obviously folded in just hours over the weekend. The National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan today said that a, quote, fair amount of U.S. arms have now certainly fallen into the Taliban's control. And I'm just showing some of the images that we have already seen. So how could this have happened? And we don't know how much the intelligence was off here or not, but the intelligence assessment had been that the Taliban wanted to take over the whole country and was intending to do so. How could this have happened where we don't even know what American weapons they have?
Well, first off, if and President Biden in his remarks yesterday said they had prepared for all their contingencies, I don't think that is necessarily the case. And in this specific case, and there was a Washington Post article a few days ago that was talking about how the military and the Afghan army were in negotiations with the Taliban for weeks and months. I'm quite confident that the intelligence community would have that kind of information, that our men and women that were still on the ground in Afghanistan would understand that. This notion, the beginning of the end was not a week ago. It was when the US government entered into direct negotiations with the Taliban without including the Afghan government. Ultimately, when it comes to Afghanistan, we were seen as the biggest power in that area. And whoever the biggest power was going to be behind, that was who was going to control the country. And beginning those negotiations under the Trump administration and President Biden following through on some of those agreements is one of the reasons that you saw this collapse.
So
We know the Afghan special forces are good fighting forces, but we should have had an accounting of all the resources that we had and were still there in that country so that we understand
so
there was problem. Because guess what? This happened in the 80s, and
yeah.
and we didn't learn the lesson from there.
So can I just ask you, because you're talking about, Trump entering into these negotiations, and I hear your point. And then Biden, you heard yesterday say, well, Trump said I had signed a deal, and so I had to go through with it. Now, how much of that do you buy? I mean, presidents say that, it seems like, when they want to, but when they don't want, like a policy that a prior president did, they just throw it away.
Absolutely. I think there's plenty of things that President Trump did that on day one, President Biden turned around. And I think what we have to remember here is, why does all of this matter? Yes, the blood, sweat, tears, treasure that were poured into Afghanistan over the last 20 years. The fact that we're a month away from the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and we have to remember that 19 terrorists with box cutters killed more Americans in one day in New York City, Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and Arlington, Virginia, than 353 Japanese fighter planes did during Pearl Harbor. That more Americans died on one day in 9/11 than have died in Afghanistan in the last 20 years. And part of this was making sure that there was not a region that a group can train and equip and attack our homeland. Now, folks that disagree with me will say, yes, Al Qaeda has metastasized. They have metastasized to other places, but those other places they've metastasized to, those governments do not want to see Al Qaeda or the Al Qaeda affiliates grow powerful the way that the Taliban let them happen, 20 years ago when they were in the country. And also this is about a broader issue between America and China, and we got to make sure that we have our allies with us, because the threats ahead of us are going to be more complicated than this. And
Yep.
the fact that you're not talking to your NATO allies, these are the kinds of things that are just unacceptable.
All right. Congressman Hurd, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Always.